It's kind of hard. Like, what is this?
So, hi, my name is Nathanael Hodson, and today I'm giving my persuasive speech on why we should have mandatory random drug testing in schools. So by the 8th grade, 28% of adolescents have consumed alcohol, 15% have smoked cigarettes, and 16.5% have used marijuana. This was according to research done by a website named Do Something. Today I'm going to talk to you about the effects of drug use in high school, and then why we need to have mandatory random drug testing. So I need to define the term illicit drug use. It's the abuse of illegal substances and the misuse of prescription medication. By the 12th grade, half of adolescents have abused illicit drugs at least once. And a fourth of those adolescents have continued to use the drugs by the 12th grade. The most commonly used drug is marijuana, and this is prevalent in most schools across the nation. There's also been a correlation shown between drug use and their parents' income. So when their parents' income is really low and they're at the poverty level, it usually shows that the students are going to be using these drugs. There are certain symptoms and behaviors that schools look for when they're trying to decide if they need to implement drug testing, and one of those changes is changes in friends. Schools notice things like changes in friends, and then when their friends change, usually their dress starts to change. And that kind of leads into stereotypes, and stereotypes are usually shown as a bad thing, but when schools are looking to decide if they need to implement drug testing, they can use the stereotypes to decide if they need to have the drug testing. Then also they look for a loss of interest in school. If they lose their interest in school, then usually that means that they're doing drugs and they're hanging out with their friends that are doing those things with them. And they also lose an interest in their hobbies like sports and extracurricular activities. The earlier an individual starts to use drugs or smoking or drinking, the greater their likelihood is of becoming addicted. 9 out of 10 people with an addiction involving alcohol, nicotine, or other drugs have been using those substances since before they were 18. And then Silverberg said that people who begin using the addictive substances before the ages of 15 are 6.5 times more likely to become addicted than those who delay their first use till 21 or older. And then on the flip side, every year that substance abuse is delayed gives them a greater chance of not becoming addicted to them. So the different effects of drug use on high school has been great. Students who are under the influences of the mind-altering chemicals can't learn as well, they lack motivation, and they risk permanent damage of their ability to learn. The U.S. Department of Education said that the brain cells are constantly being depleted by the chemicals that they're putting in their bodies. When they no longer have those brain cells, they no longer have the capacity to learn, and then their brain cells start to drop. When their grades start to drop, the teachers don't really know what to do about it, so then they begin to be put in remedial classes. And then when they are put in the remedial classes, then they kind of lose their desire to learn. And then when they come to school under the influence of drugs, that's one of the biggest giveaway of that they need to start the drug testing, because the teachers definitely notice it, and then also it can be distracting to other students. Their involvement in school activities begins to go down. They no longer have a desire to be in sports. When they do the drugs, they lose their ability to have the attention span for the sports that they love to play, and then when they can't perform at their best, the coaches start to kick them off their teams. And then the drugs also can sometimes cause medical issues that affect their ability to play sports. Then some students also lose their want to participate in extracurricular activities. When a student is active in BPA or things like that, they're required to have a bunch of responsibility, and they need to be able to do all their work at their best. And then if they start constantly using drugs, their responsibility levels tend to go down. And then kids that are in theater programs when they start using drugs, it kind of ties back to their loss of brain damage. They aren't able to remember the lines that they need to do, and they're no longer able to be in those things that they wanted to do. Since drugs have been a big deterrent in schooling, we need to find a way to help students better this. So, a survey by the U.S. Department of Education covered 36 different schools. 18 of the schools implemented mandatory random student drug testing, which they call MRSDT, just for short. And in the first 18 schools, they drug tested the students, then waited 30 days, and then drug tested them again. And then the other 18 schools, they just surveyed them as normal. The students that were subject to the mandatory random student drug testing after the 30 days showed less drug use. 16% of them reported that they had used it. And then in the schools that didn't have the drug testing, 34% of the students reported that they had used drugs. So what if this happened across the nation, if we implemented drug testing everywhere? We would definitely see a national decrease in the amount of students in high school that use drugs. And then the lives of many students would be changed. There would be an increase in students that go to college, and there would be much more people that become successful in their life. And then also our tax dollars would go to better things. It costs about $100,000 to drug test between 500 and 600 students monthly in 1 year. And then it costs about $60,000 to $70,000 per student to send to juvenile delinquent centers. And this was found from Gateway information. When students before drug testing, they would just be sent to detention centers because they couldn't find what they were trying. Because they found the drugs and they didn't know what to do with them. So if the students test positive, the schools have the ability to decide what they want to do with them. They can either suspend them for a while, or they can put them in classes that are sort of like rehab. The student is then usually pulled away from sports once they test positive, and then they are asked to do something like take the classes so that they can be allowed back into sports. So today I've informed you on all the things about drugs and about why we need drug testing, that it can help our tax dollars and that it helps students better their lives in the future.